Okay, so before we launch ourselves into this section, I want you just to take a moment to sit back and think about a time when you were engaged in some activity that you really enjoyed, that you were completely focused on, and that you immersed yourself within that activity of what you were doing. Might be reading a book, or it might be watching a movie, or it might be going for a run. It could be writing an assignment, doing research, whatever it is, painting a picture, whatever it is, some activity that you became so immersed in that you were utterly focused. You were only aware of that activity that you were doing, and you couldn't believe how much time went by. It seemed like hours went by in just a few minutes. I want you to think about a time when that's happened to you and recognize mindfully how that felt, because what you felt at that time was the qualities of flow. And flow theory is what we're going to discuss in this section. And to help put this into context, flow theory is quite important from a positive psychology and from a wellness and well-being perspective, because it is how we can manage the balance between something being boring that we're disengaging from and something being stressful that we get anxious about, which then causes us to either panic or disengage and just not get into the rhythm of what we're doing. Flow theory underlies our ability to be engaged with the motivation to achieve, to accomplish something. So what is flow theory? It's focusing on full involvement in the present moment. Now, you may remember that we discussed a similar concept when we talked about mindfulness, where mindfulness is present moment awareness. And here we're saying pretty much the same thing, that we are focusing on the full involvement in that present moment, in what we are doing in the here and now. And when we engage in that, we end up in this flow state. And from the perspective of flow, a good life is characterized by complete absorption in what one does. So if you are living an engaged life that you are dynamically and actively engaged with, you are in the flow. And that is how the flow then becomes part of the good life. It doesn't have to be a step in, step out state, like when you're reading a good book and you become totally immersed and then you put the book down and you step out of that flow. It doesn't need to be like that. It's perhaps not as intense, but it can, the same thing can happen when we are engaged in that flow of the good life, of achieving the good life, where everything we're doing is meaningful and has purpose and is of value to us, and we're engaged with it, and we're achieving things, and we're accomplishing things, and it's and we're actively involved in living that good life. And this flow theory has been studied extensively by Csikszentmihalyi, one of the authors of this statement here. And he's written very extensively on flow. So we're going to have a little look at flow now and really what it means. So here we have the original model, I suppose, of the flow state, which was proposed by Csikszentmihalyi when he first put this forward. And what we can see is that in the graph, the y-axis says it's measures the action, the opportunities, or the challenges that we face. Now that might sound strange, that challenges are a positive thing, but challenge provides motivation for us to engage with something in order to accomplish it. It's not much of accomplishment if it's not challenging us. So we have to have a reasonable amount of challenge that we have to work at in order for it to be meaningful and for us to achieve a sense of accomplishment in having overcome that challenge or having met that challenge. Like if we want to run a marathon, okay? There's a challenge in running a marathon, but once we run that marathon, we've accomplished something, we've achieved something. We say we tick it off the bucket list because that's our way of going, wow, I did that. On the x-axis, we can see action in capabilities, so the skills. In other words, the skills we have in order to be able to meet the challenge. And do we have those skills? You know, I might say, well, I want to climb to the peak of Mount Everest, but I've never trained in that. I don't know mountaineering, don't know how to tie a knot in a rope, don't know how to survive in those extreme weather conditions. So my skill level is very low compared to the challenge level, which is very high. And if we were to plot that on the scale, I would suddenly be in anxiety. So if somebody picked me up today and dumped me at base camp on the side of Mount Everest and said, off you go, climb to the top, I would have a certain level of anxiety, probably a fairly high level of anxiety in being able to achieve that because I don't necessarily have the skill. If, for example, the challenge that lay before me was to walk 5 kilometers along a footpath, for example, well, I have the skill to do that. I'm quite used to bushwalking and hiking, and walking 15, 20 kilometers. So walking 5 kilometers along a footpath is something that I certainly have the skill to do. But it's not particularly interesting or not particularly challenging in any way for me. And so the challenge is very low level, and by comparison, my skill level would be considered to be significantly higher, and therefore that would bring me to the bottom end of the graph where I'd become rather bored with that if all I had to do was walk 5 kilometers along a cement footpath. Doesn't seem very stimulating. So we need to create a balance point between an adequate level of challenge for which we feel that we have the abilities, have the skills to achieve, but we still may need to develop those skills or learn new skills or adapt skills that we already have in order to meet the challenge. And when we do that, when we're involved in a state that is fun, enjoyable, or a state of play, and we're engaging with our creativity of using the skills that we have to meet and to overcome the challenge, then we're engaged in the flow state, which runs central to all of that. So flow is experienced when perceived opportunities for action are balanced with the actor's perceived skills. That doesn't mean to say you have to have all the skills up front before you meet the challenge. It means that you need to have adequate skill and the ability to utilize those skills to meet the challenge and to overcome it and to achieve it. So in my case, for example, sure, I may be good at bushwalking and hiking, and I can do 15 kilometers in one day across the mountains. And so the challenge I'm going to do is a 2-day overnight long distance hike of 40 kilometers. So I have the skills in doing the hiking and the bushwalking and etc. And now I'm going to add in the extra element of going further overnight, where I have to now carry more equipment, camp, be self-sufficient for a whole 48-hour period, and come out the other end of that. That would be a way of being able to use skills that I have to meet a significant challenge but I have the skills to overcome that, and so I'd be able to get into the flow state to be able to achieve that. So what are these qualities of the flow state? How do we know when we're in flow? Well, there are a number of qualities which have been identified of people when they achieve flow state. There is intense and focused concentration on what one is doing in the present moment. So if I was walking along my 5 kilometre cement footpath, it may be that my skill level is higher than the challenge level, and therefore my mind will start to wander, and I start to daydream, and I just start to mindlessly wander along because I don't really need to be paying attention to what I'm doing. That's not being in flow. Even though I might be walking along mindlessly, thinking about other things, I'm not in a flow state. I'm in a distracted state. If I was intensely focused on what I was doing in this moment, that would be a flow state. There is a merging of action and awareness. In other words, not only are you being focused on the present moment, but you're being focused on being actively involved and engaged in that moment. So your actions and your awareness are linked together in that present moment. There is a loss of reflective self-consciousness, or a loss of oneself as a social actor. In other words, you're not really thinking about yourself. You're just involved entirely in this moment. It's as if you're not really separate from that moment or from that activity that you're doing. You're not sitting there thinking, oh, I feel hungry. Oh, I feel thirsty. Oh, I should take a break right now. None of those things appear in your mind. None of those things come to your consciousness. You as a self, as a person being an actor in that moment doesn't exist. You are part of that moment and part of that activity that you're doing. There is a sense that one can control one's actions. That is, a sense that one can in principle deal with the situation because one knows how to respond to whatever happens next. This is having that confidence in your skill set, in your creativity, in your ability to think, to be logical, to be analytical, to be adaptive to the situation, and you know that you'll be able to do those things whenever the need arises. You will just be able to do that. So you're in control. And when you're in control, you don't have to be self-conscious. You don't have to be thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this if I come across this? Or I don't know how I'm going to react if this situation comes up. All of those things go. That's the loss of reflective self-consciousness because you have a sense of control over those actions. You have the confidence to be able to achieve that. There's distortion of temporal experience. That means you lose the sense of time. It appears as though hours flashed by in just minutes. And most of us have experienced that at some point. And there is the experience of the activity as intrinsically rewarding, such that often the end goal is just an excuse for the process. When you go out hiking and you choose to walk, 15 kilometers, climbing steep mountains and going down valleys and wandering across rivers and, getting your feet wet and then having to scramble up rocks and do all of these sorts of things, you are involved in the experience of the activity that you're doing. Getting to the 15-kilometer mark at the end actually isn't really the purpose. It's the 15-kilometer mark just gives you 15 kilometers of experience to live in moment by moment. The old saying, the journey is more important than the destination. And so the experience of the activity of actually walking that distance is the intrinsically rewarding part. And so these qualities of the flow state, when we look at them and we study them and we go, well, what is it that I do? What activity is it that I do in my life that I enjoy so much that gets me into this state? And we should actively pursue those things because they are meaningful to us. Those are things that we value and they bring about those positive emotions. And when we do that and we meet that challenge, we take time to acknowledge and savor the accomplishment and to have gratitude for having the skills and the ability to have accomplished that, but also the gratitude to those who taught us those skills or those resources that were available to us, the team that we worked with, or whatever the case may be, to achieve that accomplishment. And then all of a sudden, we're able to get into this flow state, which is this self-motivated state of total engagement with something that builds our sense of well-being.